Alright everyone, so this is the first video in a while since the coronavirus has effectively put most countries in the world on lockdown and many states in the US in shelter-in-place orders, including my home state of New York, which unfortunately is the epicenter, as of this point, of the coronavirus in the US and maybe soon to be the world. But Italy and other countries are still railing from this crisis. However, today we're going to be doing our mid-coronavirus prediction of the 2020 election with Joe Biden and Donald Trump matched up together. Now, if we look at the Democratic primary totals so far, Joe Biden has 303 delegates over Bernie Sanders as of this current time. I don't think overall coronavirus will have a big role to play in either the Democratic primary or the general election. I'll probably make a separate video in the future on why that is. But as of right now, Bernie Sanders does have a tough ladder to climb when it comes to winning the nomination. If we look at the states that Joe Biden has won so far, and these are about consistent, the states that he's won so far, the Deep South, the South in total, and the Midwest is effectively on lock. Even if Bernie Sanders wins all of these states out here in the West, he won't even come close to winning the nomination. I mean, he might win West Virginia, but keep in mind, Joe Biden does not have the baggage that a candidate like Hillary Clinton had. He does not have all the scandals. And of course, he does have his scandals and some baggage, but it's not nearly to the level. The public perception of Joe Biden with the Democratic base as a whole, and I'm not just talking about the Bernie folks, I'm talking about everybody, overall, the whole party, he doesn't have as much of a corrupt reputation as somebody like Joe Biden. So the states that Bernie has actually done well, California, if Bernie didn't win California, the race would already be over. I effectively, and even most people in the Bernie Sanders camp will tell you behind closed doors that the race is effectively over. Bernie Sanders is now raising money for coronavirus relief, which is a good thing, by the way. But Joe Biden has effectively won the race, and his campaign staff are doing a smart thing by hiding him away so he doesn't make gaffes and have his campaign implode on itself. But all the other states that come up next, so, you have New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. These are all states, Ohio, Indiana. These are all states Joe Biden is leading in heavily. Of course, Georgia, Louisiana, deep southern states are going to go for Joe Biden pretty handily in the primary. So the Democratic nomination is effectively over. Of course, we're not going to have actually tangible results till I predict around June. Most states have pushed their primary. New York, I don't think has, but I reckon it will, especially since Governor Cuomo is taking coronavirus very seriously, to his credit. But anyway, we're going to go back now to the predictions. So first we're going to mark off the safe states for Joe Biden. These are states that Joe Biden will win by over 15 points or higher, no matter what happens. Now again, like I said earlier, I don't think coronavirus will play a huge role in the 2020 election, regardless of what happens, and I have evidence to back that up. And again, we'll give Trump his states. Now, Biden is in a better position than Hillary to defeat Donald Trump. However, there are some caveats to that. Trump is the incumbent, and Biden is not cognitively sharp like Hillary Clinton was. You can criticize Hillary on anything, but she was not going senile at the time of her election. She was still very much there. Joe Biden, you cannot say the same for. So anyway, we have the safe states for both candidates here. Now we're going to go into the likely Democratic states. These are states Joe Biden is going to win by anywhere from 7 to 15 points. So the first likely state we're going to put at is New Mexico. I think Joe Biden will win the state of New Mexico by a likely margin in 2020. If we go to the 2016 results, Hillary Clinton won the state by around 8 points. Gary Johnson being a significant factor here in the state, garnering 750,000 votes, which is quite a lot in the state of New Mexico, which only has somewhere around 2 million or so people. But I would bet to guess that if we were to take Gary Johnson out of the equation, I'd say 60% of his votes would go to Trump and around 40 to Hillary. Even with that, Hillary wins 6-7 points, effectively a likely/lean margin, but Hillary would still have won the state. She probably would have won a majority and not a plurality. And of course, if we look at the county by county results, we have these counties up here, strong Democratic. These are also very rural counties, but they have heavy Hispanic populations up here, and of course urban areas like Albuquerque are still Democratic strongholds regardless. So I think Joe Biden's going to win this state by a likely margin. New Mexico has been trending blue. In 2000, it barely went to Al Gore, but then in 2004, it barely went to Bush. And then ever since then, it has been strongly in the Democratic camp. After the 2004 election, it has been strongly in the Democratic camp. So that's going to be it for the likely Democratic states. I don't see any other states on the map as of this time going to Joe Biden by a likely margin. Now, of course, if we were to look at certain states, his VP pick could make a slight difference. You know, if he picks somebody like Senator Gillibrand from New York, it's not going to make much of a difference because New York's already a deep blue state. Any way you cut it, it's always going to go blue no matter what, no matter who the candidate is. But if you were to pick somebody like Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, that could change things because she is popular in her home state, even if Minnesota as a whole is trending more red nowadays. And I don't think it's going to flip this time around. But anyway, that's it for the likely Democratic states. We're going to move on to the likely Republican states. Texas is going to go to Trump by a likely margin. If we look back at the 2016 election, Trump won the state by 9 points. But keep in mind the key areas here. Now, Texas is blood red, most of the state. But most of the people live right around here in these metro areas, and particularly in the suburban counties, you see a hard swing to the left. If we look at the trend, the changes from 2012, the rural areas got more red, but the urban areas and suburban areas got more blue. And we can look at all these suburban counties, Fort Bend County outside Houston, Harris County, which is where Houston's located, once considered a swing county, went heavily for Hillary Clinton by 14 points. That's almost a safe margin. I predict it'll probably be somewhere around there, maybe a little bit less. I think overall Trump's going to win this state by a likely margin, either a little bit more or a little bit less. I think, as of right now, Trump's approval rating being as high as it is, I see Texas going to him by around 10 or 11 points. He'll make up a little bit. And Texas as a whole is trending blue, but this is slightly different. And of course, keep in mind Trump's approval rating is near 50% despite all this coronavirus hysteria. And some of it is, but you have to take something like this very seriously. You know, the media is trying to punish him with it. And there are some, I will confess, there are some things I wish he had done differently. But overall, and this is one of the reasons why I don't think it's going to play a huge role, and I'll get into that in a separate video, people already have their perceptions of how they think Trump handled the crisis. Republicans are going to say he did a great job. Democrats are going to say he's doing a terrible job. That hasn't changed. Hyperpartisanship is just like that. That's just how it works. But anyway, the state of Texas is going to be likely Republican, and as well as the state of Iowa. Now we're going to move on to lean Democrat states. These are states that Joe Biden is going to win anywhere from 7 to 2 points. And the first one of those states I predict will be the state of Colorado. Now Colorado has been trending blue as of late, ever since 2008. Every Democratic nominee for president has won the state of Colorado pretty handedly. Obama won it by a near landslide margin in 2008. 2012, I think, was around 6-point difference. And then, again, if we look at 2016, Trump lost the state by around 5 points. And, of course, again, Gary Johnson is a factor, but you can't say that all of Gary Johnson's votes would go to Trump. If that were the case, then Trump would have probably won the state, although that's not the case. Libertarians don't always go for Republicans. I'd say around 60, at most 70% of Gary Johnson's vote would have went to Trump. But again, some of those people might not have even voted to begin with, so it's interesting to speculate, but I think that's all it is speculation. Either way, I think the Democratic nominee will pick up the state, will carry the state of Colorado again in 2020. Unless something crazy happens or some anomaly or Joe Biden has a medical incident after winning the nomination or something like that, I don't see him winning the state. I don't see Trump winning the state of Colorado. Next, we're going to move on to the state of Virginia. I think Virginia is going to go lean Democrat. I think it's going to be on the higher end of that scale. I'm gonna say it's around 6 or 7 points, maybe 5. If we look back at the 2016 election, Trump lost the state by over 5 points, and he underperformed compared to other Republican nominees in the past, especially in these Northern Virginia suburbs. Loudoun County, he did abysmally. I think in 2012, Romney lost the county by around 5 points. This time around, Trump lost the county by a safe margin. Same with Prince William County. Fairfax County, I think Romney also lost by a large margin, but that's typical. But Trump heavily underperformed in Virginia. I don't really think Virginia's a swing state anymore. I wouldn't say Republicans shouldn't put some money into the state, but when you look at the demographics, you look at the 2017 gubernatorial race, you look at the 2019 legislative races there, Democrats just sweep the state, and the state seems to have a very anti-Trump streak to it. Even if it was a swing state, they'd probably favor a more establishment Republican, because that is the type of state it is. And likewise, they also favor establishment Democrats. Why Joe Biden won by such a massive margin in this state? It's not just because the state has a significant African American population, but it also has to do with the Northern Virginia suburbs being somewhat moderate when it comes to fiscal policy. They want to keep their money. They don't want a Bernie Sanders type raising their taxes too high, so they're going to vote for Joe Biden. Of course, they're not going to vote for Trump. They don't like him. They think he breaks political decorum and all that. They're part of like the liberal elite class up here in the north. So anyway, we're going to put Virginia as lean Democrat. That's going to be all. That's going to be all for the lean Democrat states. We're going to move on to the lean Republican states. These are states Trump's going to win by anywhere from 2 to 7 points, and the first one of those states I predict is the state of Arizona. Now we can look at polling from the state of Arizona at this time, and Biden is ahead in these polls. I don't expect this to stay. I think there are other polling sites that have put Trump ahead by around 1 to 2 points. I know with Trump and Sanders matchups, I think it's a smaller margin. We could just take a look here. It is. Trump wins. I think that will still be the case with Joe Biden come the 2020 election. I don't see Biden winning Arizona. The Senate race, however, is a totally different story. We could just go back to the 2016 results and look at Arizona real quick. Trump won the state by 4 points roughly, and Maricopa County is the real prize. This is the area that counts the most. Yuma County is another swing county, but there's not a lot of people here. Maybe do some rallies in Pima County and Maricopa County. These are the two major population centers of Arizona. If we look at the change from 2012, Arizona went more to the left as a whole. Rural areas went more to the right, but that doesn't really help Trump in terms of numbers. Maricopa County is the county with has a lot of people in it. Mitt Romney won the county by 9 points last time. Trump only won it by around 3, which is he barely won it. He couldn't even break 50% here in Maricopa County. But nonetheless, these are the areas you have to focus on. I don't really buy the polls. I think Trump at the end of the day is going to win this state by 3 to 4 points. That's why I'm giving it to him in the lean column, especially against Biden. The next lean state we're going to look at is the state of Georgia. I think Trump's going to carry the state of Georgia by a higher margin than he did. I don't think it's going to be likely. I think it's going to be around 7 points on the higher end. And we can look at polling out of the state of Georgia. Trump, on average, is leading by 7 points. I think this is more accurate. In 2018, Stacey Abrams almost won the gubernatorial race there. But however, you have to take into consideration that 2018 was somewhat of a Democratic wave year. There was higher Democratic turnout overall in the state and across the country. And that really aided somebody like Abrams. So I think when we look at a state like Georgia, I expect around a over 7 point victory for Trump. I think this is just average. This is better, by the way, than in 2016. And barring something horrible happening with, like, for instance, coronavirus response, and we could look at Georgia in the 2016 election, Trump only won the state by 5 points. I think he will win it by 7 or 8. I think he can improve his margins in these counties. I think he can win Cobb County. He only lost it by 2 points. Areas like Gwinnett County. If we look at the Senate race, and this is interesting too, the Republican was able to win these counties. Cobb County especially, very Republican for Isakson. Isakson, a popular incumbent Republican senator. But I think Trump can really increase his margins in suburban Georgia, and thus that would bring him in a much better position to win the state by a larger margin in 2020. So Georgia is going to go lean Republican. Another state I think will go by a lean margin is the state of Florida. Now, this one's kind of speculation on my part because we look at the polls in the state of Florida. Trump's winning on average by around a point, which is what he won Florida last time. And even a lot of Democrats concede that Trump will win the state of Florida in 2020, and many of them have given up and they're just focusing on the Rust Belt primarily. I think personally, Trump is going to win over 50% of the vote in Florida, and I think he's going to increase his margins in crucial counties. Now, if we look at Florida in 2016, I don't have the 2018 results up for me right now, but in 2018, again, Democratic wave year, Republicans overperformed in the state of Florida. They didn't lose any of the statewide races that were key. They didn't lose the Senate race, and they didn't lose the governor's race. The governor's race was by a little bit of a wider margin than the Senate race, but I think Trump's really going to improve his margins in places like Duval County, here near Tampa, and these areas, and I think he could chip away at some margins in these darker blue counties like Palm Beach and these other areas. I think Florida is actually trending red, and if we look at the change from 2012, it's the same across the country. More urban counties and more suburban counties are trending blue. Rural counties are trending more heavily red than they have been. So I think ultimately at the end of the day, Trump's going to win the state of Florida. I predict 51 to Biden maybe getting 48% of the vote, the rest going to third parties. That's my prediction. Biden could get as low as 47, the same as Hillary. We don't know exactly yet. But I think based on the results, and I'll probably make a future video going into detail about each of the swing states and more justifying my position based on previous trends and other data, polls, etc. The fact that the Republicans did so well in the statewide offices in 2018 bodes well for Trump in 2020. So we're going to keep that as lean for Florida. The last Republican lean state, we forgot Ohio. Ohio is going to be likely, completely forgot about Ohio. We're going to look at Ohio real quick, take a quick deviation. But Ohio, Trump did win Ohio by a likely margin. He won it by over 7 points the last time around. Hillary, for a Democrat, did abysmally in the state of Ohio. When Republicans usually win Ohio in previous elections, it's only been by 2 or 3 points when Bush won it both times, and so on. And no Democrat has ever won the White House without carrying Ohio. Now, it's technically possible for them to not do that, and a lot of Democrats, like with the state of Florida, have written off Ohio. Ohio is still technically a battleground, but I definitely see it as more likely considering how well Trump has done in this state and how poorly Ohioans receive more corporate Democrats like Hillary. I think they've finally given up on the party that has screwed them over on trade and these other issues. So we're going to put that as likely. But North Carolina is going to be the last leans Republican state. Now, if we look at 2012, the state of North Carolina, Trump almost got 50% of the vote and carried the state by nearly 4 points. Now, areas I think Trump will improve. I think he can improve in the southern part of the state here. I think he'll improve in Cumberland County. I think he can get 42% of the vote here. Charlotte has been trending more blue if we look at the trends from 2012. Definitely that is the case. I think that's going to continue to be the case. However, overall as a state, despite the urban areas trending blue, most of the state as a whole is trended red, and some areas more dramatically than others, giving Trump a real advantage, especially this county down here, Robinson County, which completely flipped in 2012, giving Obama 58% of the vote and giving Trump 50% of the vote in 2016. So a massive shift to the right in that county. And also in these counties, which are crucial for Republicans winning in the state. Now, he could possibly improve his margins in Wake County, which is where Raleigh is located, and it has a significant population center. The population centers in North Carolina are right around here, and of course in these bluer areas. But I think overall Trump's going to win this state by around 3 or 4 points, similar to the way he won it last time. I don't really agree with the polls, and we can look at North Carolina now. They have Biden up ahead, just like Arizona. I see a lot of issue with this, and ultimately I don't see it playing out this way. So I'm going to give this state to Donald Trump in a lean margin. This isn't a state, but a district. We're going to give Nebraska's second district to Donald Trump by a lean margin. I don't know if they exactly have it here for Nebraska's second, but it went to Trump by a much smaller margin. It always does. Nebraska's second, by the way, is right around here, around Omaha. So it takes up part of Douglas County, and I think encompasses some of these other counties. But anyway, this is going to go to Trump by around 3 or 4 points. We can look at the congressional results. The second district on the congressional level also went to the Republicans, unseated a Democratic incumbent. That's going to be it for the lean Republican states. Now we're going to go into the tilt column. These are states that are going to go to either candidate by 2 points or less, and we're first going to go to the tilt Democrat states. So in previous predictions, I've put Nevada as a Trump state. I've changed my mind. I think Trump won't win Nevada. I think it'll be a tilt for Biden as of right now. And the reason I say that is because though Nevada has been trending red, lots of polling from the state has Biden as much as 7 or 8 points still ahead. Something like 3 points ahead in states like Arizona and North Carolina is within sort of the margin of error. But I think based on the 2018 results from Nevada and others, if we look at, for instance, North Carolina, the 2018 results, if we look at the state seats, like the state government and the legislature and the houses, Republicans win by 5 or 6 points. So if you take the total number of votes cast for state seats in places like North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, it's very encouraging for Republicans. Nevada, this is not the case. So it's important to look at state elections too when you're judging how states are going to go in the future. So I think Nevada is actually going to go to tilt Biden. This could very easily change, but for the sake of this prediction right now, in the circumstance we're in, late March 2020, I'm going to put this as tilt for Biden. Another state that's going to tilt for Biden is the state of Minnesota. This is a state I think Trump will spend a lot of time campaigning, but I ultimately don't think he'll win. You could put this in the lean margin if the vice president of Biden is Amy Klobuchar. I think he'll do slightly better in that state. We can look at the results back in 2016. They were within 2 points for Donald Trump. This is a state that hasn't gone for the Republicans since 1972, Nixon's 49-state landslide. It was the only state that went blue during Reagan's 49-state landslide in 1984, besides, of course, D.C. So if we look at the state of Minnesota, the only true blue areas of this state anymore are the Minneapolis metro, the Twin City area, and this rural area up here. I don't exactly know why this is blue. Minnesota is a very white working class state like the rest of the Rust Belt, but it does have a far more pronounced Democratic streak than its neighbors over here on the state level. So ultimately, I think it's going to tilt for Democrats. I think this will be a complete toss-up in 2024 as the state trends more red. I'm going to put this as tilt Democrat. And that's going to be it. We're going to actually put, we're going to put Maine as tilt Democrat. I don't think Trump is going to win the state of Maine this time around. If we go by district, Maine's second is probably going to go to Trump by a safe margin. But likewise, I think Maine's first will go to Biden by a safe margin, which is not enough to swing the state. Maine's first district is slightly bigger. And from this, Trump will get one electoral vote because Maine is, like Nebraska, one of the only 2 states that splits their vote based on congressional district. Ultimately, I see Trump losing the state. I see Susan Collins winning the state in the Senate. I'll probably get to a new updated Senate prediction in another video. But this is going to be another tilt Democratic state. While we're at it, we might as well go to New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire is going to be tilt Democrat. I've looked at polling from the state of New Hampshire recently. It's not very encouraging for Donald Trump. I think on average he's losing by 7 or 8 points. In my last prediction, the polls were a little bit more encouraging for him in the state, so I gave it to him. This time around, I'm revoking that. I'm giving it to Joe Biden as of right now. That leaves the tilt Republican states, and as such, we're going to give the same states to Donald Trump. We're going to give Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio all by tilt margins. Now, this election map is roughly the same that we saw last time, and this is also what I see unfolding if the current crisis continues. And if we look at these states, for example, the rural areas took a massive shift to the right, especially in states like Michigan, states like Pennsylvania, heavily rejecting the Democratic Party's message. The problem with predicting in these states is on the state level in 2018, Democrats all won the popular vote. Not by as much in states like Michigan and Wisconsin, but in Pennsylvania it was around 10 points. But Pennsylvania tends to elect people from different parties in the same election year. So if we go to 2008, Obama wins the state by 10 points, but also the state's attorney general, Tom Corbett, wins by around 10 points, and he's a Republican. So I do see the state of Pennsylvania ultimately going to Donald Trump again, barring some crazy circumstances. So as of right now, this is where I see the map standing. No Trump pickups as of this time. It's exactly the same map that we saw the last election, barring probably some gains in some of the states he'd previously won. But this is what I predict as of right now. Basically the same map that we saw last time. It's tempting to put a state like Minnesota, Nevada, or New Hampshire in the Trump column, but based on polling, I can't do that right now. So anyway, this has been a long prediction video. I'd like to thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll be releasing more videos on this and more in the future. Thanks for watching.